Hey guys, Matt aka Matiln here. First off, sorry about the lighting, it's nighttime and I have to record this video because I need to get something out to you guys by Monday. Second thing, in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to make this kind of bass sound. Using only Ableton stock instruments and effects. So, let's jump right in. Alright, so I have a new Ableton Live session open up here with just a single MIDI track, and what we're going to do first off is drag on an instance of Analog onto this MIDI track. This is going to be the synth we're going to be using to create this bass sound. Okay, so here in Analog, this is what the initial sound when you first open up Analog is going to sound like. Not very pleasant to listen to right off the bat, but what we're going to do initially is take down the cutoff frequency of the filter. And because Analog already has an envelope mapped to the filter frequency cutoff, as soon as you drag the filter frequency down, what you're going to get is this kind of plucky sound, which is what we want. Super cool right there. Next thing we want to do is to go into this main kind of section over here, the global section, if you will. Turn the voices on to mono because we only want a single note to be playing at once for this bass sound. Next thing we're going to do is detune both oscillator 1 and 2 slightly from one another. So I generally like to detune oscillator 1 up and oscillator 2 down a little bit. Yeah, 0.08's pretty good, maybe 0.05, and you'll hear what this sounds like. You can kind of hear that's already slightly detuned. Next thing I'm going to do is turn on the unison detune and then drag this up to maybe about 16. Works pretty well. Now this sounds pretty cool, but what we want to do is make it sound a little bit thicker. So what I'm going to do is put up the sub oscillators on both oscillator 1 and 2 within Analog. So the way you do this is click on the oscillator that you want and go over to this little thing in the bottom right hand corner of the middle section. Make sure it's on sub mode and then drag it up and do this for both oscillators. And you'll see it instantly kind of thickens up the sound because now we essentially have 4 oscillators that are slightly detuned from each other. Now you can start to play around with the envelopes and the decay time and attack time and envelope amounts. So what we're going to do is just kind of fiddle around with the filter frequency and the filter envelopes and stuff until we get a sound that we kind of like. So I'm going to, first of all, bring up the envelope a little bit to maybe about, let's say 7. Let's take up the resonance to about 10. Sounds pretty cool. And now you can start to muck around with the decay time. At this point, it's also worth changing the amplitude envelope as well. So this is personal preference, but I personally want no release on this bass sound so that as soon as I let go of the note, it stops. I'm happy to have all the sustain, but just so that we can get a really nice, clear and crisp bass sound. You might want to turn up the release a little bit if you don't like that click at the end of it, but totally over to you. Now this is really cool and it sounds great as far as I'm concerned at the moment, but what you can do to make it sound even better, just within Analog itself, is use the pitch envelopes on the oscillators, and this will give you a nice kind of punchy attack to the start of your bass sound. So what I generally do is drag the pitch envelope initial all the way up to 100 and the time to about 10%. And I do this for both oscillators, and then you'll hear immediately it just changes the sound completely. Gives it this really big attack and just like makes the sound really, really present as soon as it comes in. Next thing I'm going to do, because I want this bass sound to sound a little bit spread, is I'm actually going to add a chorus onto it because Analog in itself doesn't have a spread knob or feature like Operator does. So the way I'm going to do this, so I'm just going to grab a chorus, drop it right after the Analog, and then play a note. instantly even with just the default chorus settings, it sounds awesome. You can play around with the chorus settings, of course. You can take down the modulation rate so that you get less of a kind of detune amount, and maybe take up the amount. Play around with this XY pad until you find something that you like, and then play around with the dry wet knob as well. Obviously, the higher the wet value, the more spread the sound is going to be, and the lower the value, the more kind of centered the sound is going to be. Now, after we add chorus to this sound, this also spreads out the bass frequencies. And as you know, I like to keep most of my bass frequencies in mono, and this is pretty standard across the board. So the way I like to do this is I've created a little rack here that I call mono lows. I've gone through how to do this in a previous video, but I'll just go through it quickly again, what I've done here now. So basically I've got two multi-band dynamics, both with the same crossover point. One is only soloing the mids and the highs, and one is soloing the lows, or only letting the lows through. And then on this low chain, on the chain that's only letting the low frequencies pass through, I've got a utility and I've set the width to 0. So basically what this does is gets rid of all the side information, all the information that's different between the left and right channels in the frequencies below the crossover point that I can set here with this macro knob. So now that I've put that mono lows on there, what I'm going to do is start to shape the sound even more using some overdrive, saturation, redux, EQ, and compression. So basically what you can do from this point, I would just chuck a glue compressor on, chuck the soft clipping on, because it gives the soft clipping gives it a really nice sound, and you can just drive it into it. Get pretty loud, but a really, really nice sound. You can also make it even more punchier by dragging the threshold down, the attack up, and the release down a little bit, and maybe even muck around with the ratio. With the compressor, without the compressor, obviously there's a volume difference, which, you know, is good, I suppose. And what I also like to do, like I said before, you can chuck on some overdrive, just kind of increase the high frequency content. Maybe that's a little bit too much, but you kind of get the idea. You can muck around with this. With the overdrive, without the overdrive. Just really, really make it even more present than it currently is. Next thing, you can drag on some EQ. I would put this post the mono lows or post the chorus and the overdrive. And maybe start to shape the sound a little bit like this. Take out some of the low mid frequencies. Maybe some of the mid frequencies as well. And maybe if you wanted even more punch in this, you could just boost some of the high mid frequencies. And there you go. You've got this really, really cool, simple bass sound using only stock Ableton plugins. And you can take this so much further if you wanted to, using all of the native effects that come within Ableton. That's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed and got something useful out of it. And hopefully you learned a little bit about Analog and some of the native effects within Ableton Live. As always, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. Hopefully I'm going to be getting back to my normal routine of Megatrack Mondays and making music in Ableton Live soon, but in the meantime, I'm just going to be putting out these sound design videos and other videos that I've been putting out over the past few weeks, just so that I can keep putting out content for you guys to watch and enjoy. Don't forget as well, if you really, really enjoy my content, consider heading over to my Patreon page and supporting me on there. I'm actually going to be putting up the sound that I made in today's video for download over there for my $5 and up patrons. So if you want to download that, make sure to head over to my Patreon page. Thanks so much for watching. My name is Martin, and I'll see you in the next video.